This is Random Thoughts again, and in this video, I'm going to continue telling you stories from the diary of one Richard Meinertzhagen, who is known to be the guy who shot Koitalel Arab Samoe. Now, in this diary, there are so many interesting stories, and I've already talked about, or I've already told you a few of the stories of some British guys who came to Kenya and they were conning the locals. I did tell you about some 3 guys who were arrested, who went to the land of the Rendile and the Samburu, and they were raiding villages, manyatas, and taking cattle for themselves. And then they had to be arrested by the early colonial government or colonial administration. And I did also talk about some guy who came to, a guy by the name Boyes, who came to Kikuyu land, and then he went to some chief and he lied to him that he wanted to be his business partner. And then this Kikuyu chief gives him his stock of ivory, and this Boyes guy disappears with the ivory, never comes back. He sells the ivory, he goes back to the UK, and then he's telling everyone in the UK that he's the king of the Wakikuyus. I also talked about some 3 guys who came to Kikuyu land, and these guys presented themselves as priests, and they were not actually priests, but they were just there to steal, to lie to the local people that they were going to do business with them, and then they were taking away some of their property, of course, for themselves. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about a guy who went by the name Gibbons. Now, Gibbons, he went to the land of Embu, or to Embu people. And then this guy did something that is, and it is interesting. I'm reading this diary and specifically this story, and it's a time when there is this talk of someone who opened a police station somewhere in the Rift Valley. And this is something almost similar. This Gibbons guy goes to Embu. This is early 1900, around 1901, 1902. By the time he's Meinertzhagen talks about him, it's 1902, 1903, and this guy goes to Embu and he sets up a camp and he hoists the Union Jack, the British flag, whatever, and he comes with a group of 30 Swahili soldiers or guards, you might call them, and he tells everyone he's a government officer. And the people of Embu believe him, and he starts collecting tax from the people, and he starts also getting a lot of ivory from the people, lying to them that if they hunt the elephants and then they bring him the ivory, he was going to go sell it and then come back and share some of the proceeds with them. And then he also demands something, we can say weird. He demands that every chief of the Embu people should give him a girl, and they do give him girls, 14 of them. And so he basically becomes the government representative in Embu, but he was not appointed by anyone. The government in Nairobi, the British government or colonial administration, didn't know about this guy. But in late 1903, the government gets these reports that there is this guy who is in Embu, who is collecting tax, who is presenting himself as a government administrator, and the people of Embu believe him. And so Richard Meinertzhagen is selected to go to Embu and to arrest this guy, this Gibbon guy. And he departs from Fort Hall, that is Moranga, on the 13th November 1903, and he proceeds to Embu. And he reaches Embu late at night, and because they wanted to be there very early in the morning so that it's a surprise to Gibbons. And in fact, they did arrive. It was very early in the morning when they attacked his camp, and they didn't meet any resistance really. The guards were just captured, and then Meinertzhagen went to the tent where Gibbons was sleeping, and he told him, "I'm arresting you." He wakes him up and he tells him, "I'm arresting you." And he arrests him, and then the Meinertzhagen and his team start collecting everything that was in the camp, including the ivory that was there, so that they carry it. And the local people hear about this raid, and they come. Meinertzhagen tells us that it was a huge crowd, and at some point they were worried that they are going to have a situation, because the people were basically wondering what's going on, and at some point they kind of started behaving like they wanted to defend this Gibbons guy, because they had come to know him as the person who represents the government in Nairobi, and they had these interactions with him. And Meinertzhagen had to use the girls that Gibbons had been given by the community, the 14 of them, as hostages, so that he can use them to leave the place, because the crowd was getting really impatient and rowdy, and it seemed like the violence was going to erupt at any moment. So he takes these girls as hostages, and he tells the people, look, I have your girls, I don't plan to harm them, but you people should stop behaving the way you are behaving. We came for this guy, and I'm going with these girls, and once I cross River Sagana, I'm going to let them go. And that's what he did. He goes with the girls, and he crosses River Sagana, and he hands them over to one of the chiefs who had followed them to that place. And Gibbons was taken to Fort Hall, and then he was transferred to Nairobi. And Meinertzhagen tells us that he was charged he was formally charged with raiding the natives, with taking by force native women, with illegally collecting government taxes for his own benefit. Those were the charges that he faced. And Meinertzhagen tells us that his group was awarded at Fort Hall for arresting this guy. Each of the members of the team that went to Embu was given a ship and 5 rupees. So that is the story of Muzungu, who went to Embu and tricked the people of Embu that he was a government official, and he wasn't. But of course, as I've said, this was not an isolated case. Seems like when the British came to colonize East Africa, there were so many people who came, British, of course, and there were so many conmen and swindlers who joined the movement, and they were doing everything. It was like everybody was trying to grab whatever they could from the indigenous communities. Those are my random thoughts.